Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, I'm Tamara Thomas, and welcome to Urban Health Weekly, where we talk about medical news and health topics that matter to you. So I'm here with Jackie and Lou. How have you been? Happy New Year.
Good. How about you guys?
Oh my gosh, I've missed you guys. I'm fine.
I missed you guys too.
I know. It's been so long. We had quite a long break, and so much has happened in the interim. I mean, we can't cover it all because we'll be here all day. So let's jump in. So I recently had a birthday. Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on a second.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Somebody didn't extend his greetings.
Well, I haven't signed my contract yet, so
you know,
I'm holding out for more money.
It's a new year.
All right. No jokes. This year I will be serious and all that.
I doubt that, but can
all
you
right,
just
but tell us about your birthday.
No, but just say hello. Say hello.
Oh,
we
hello.
haven't heard from you in like forever.
Hello, everybody. I'm still here.
You sound good.
Kept my job.
So anyway, why he insists on going down this thread, but whatever. So recently I had a birthday and I wanted to do like an entire day spa and treat myself, you know.
You did?
I said I wanted to.
Oh.
But with this new Kraken strain of the virus, I was like, maybe not. And then I thought, okay, I'll just do a facial and a mani-pedi to make myself feel better. Because I understand I haven't done anything like that since my birthday in 2020.
Wow.
I haven't set foot inside a nail salon. I haven't set foot inside
yeah, me neither.
And then I read that UV nail polish dryers can lead to cancer-causing cell mutations. Did you read that one?
I did read that article. And, you know, I always thought that they looked like tanning beds to me.
Well, they are little mini tanning beds. You know, it's funny. At one point, they had these little gloves that you could put on your hands. I remember they sold them online. These little fingerless gloves that you use to put your hand in so that your hand is protected. And it only exposes the tips of your fingers. And I never bought it because I was like, I don't really do this enough to warrant buying the gloves. But, you know, I wish I did, because research has found that just one 20-minute session of exposure.
Oh my gosh.
Resulted in 20 to 30% cell death. Death. While 3 consecutive 20-minute sessions, I don't know what they mean by consecutive. I don't know if it's every week, every other week. I'm not sure what the duration is. But that exposure resulted in a 65 to 70% cell death. Holy moly.
Wow. Oh, maybe that's why the tops of my hands look so ancient.
Do you get gel manicures regularly?
I used to. I haven't in quite a while, because when I started working in the hospital, that particular hospital didn't want anybody to have any kind of gel on their nails if they worked with neonates. So of any kind. So we just didn't wear them. I stopped wearing them back then. And that was the end of that. So I haven't had it since. But I did used to put my hand in that. And I used to even put sunblock on my hands thinking, boy, this resembles like...
You know, it's funny. I never put my fingers in completely. I'd always put it on the tips, and they'd always be like, what are you doing? Put your hand in. And I'm like, no, it's okay. And I just put like my tips in, and it'll longer, because I never... Anyway, after reading this, I'm so relieved that I stopped doing the gel. Because, oh my God, when I think about what I was doing to my fingers and my hands.
So I guess those are different than like the sun box. That's like, you know, they have these certain sun boxes that are for mood altering, not mood altering, but it's supposed to give you, they're supposed to be different. They're not supposed to be like tanning boosts. They're supposed to not have UV. So I guess it's different than that, huh? It's not, it's its own thing. This is specifically UV.
Baby, UV is UV.
Oh, because it needs it for the gel to cure.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, and now they have a lot of lights that are mood altering, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and I found out about this accidentally doing research on a fish tank, and research on getting light.
Yeah, he's a huge aficionado.
Oh, you are? Oh, that is quite a hobby. Are you saltwater or freshwater?
Fresh. Salt is too difficult.
Salt is so difficult and expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was just trying to figure out how not to have algae grow. And then I started reading all the threads that it's not difficult anymore because they have light that's specially formulated not to let the algae grow. And then I started going on that thread, and then I found out that they have these light boxes and different lights for the home and all that actually alter your mood and stimulate sunlight and stimulate seasons. And they were talking about it in the context of people working from home that are not getting enough sunlight and what that's doing to people's mental health. That they just, sit in a dark room all day doing Zoom.
So don't you think then that people should maybe just go out? I mean, just go out.
I think they should go back to work, but
that's not really outdoors. I mean,
yeah, but, the difference between here and there, and usually office buildings all have big windows.
Yeah, but you know what? Studies have shown that having a window blunts whatever effect. You have to have direct sunlight. You can't have.
Oh yeah, they do really kind of want you to be outdoors. That's why all those like Nordic countries, they always, you're always going outdoors. That's like a thing, even if it's gray out.
Healthiest, happiest people in the world.
Yeah.
On to medical news of the week. So one big thing that did happen, we can only cover one famous person at a time. I had to choose between Stephen Twitch Boss and what's that football player's name? The one who got hit in the chest and his heart stopped and he died for like a couple of minutes.
Oh.
From the Buffaloes.
Anyway, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
It's from the Buffalo Bills.
Okay. Well, the young man from the Buffaloes.
Mm-hmm. Buffalo Bills.
The Buffalo Bills. That's right. So I decided to go with Stephen Twitch Boss's death. Okay. So anyway, Stephen Twitch Boss's death sparks conversation on suicide prevention for men of color. The suicide rate among men in 2020 was 4 times higher than among women. White and Native and Indigenous peoples have the highest rates of suicide in the U.S., according to the most recent data available from the CDC, that's the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Between 2018 and 2020, the adjusted suicide rates for Black and Hispanic people in the U.S. have increased, prompting mental health experts and community groups to double down on providing help to these historically underserved communities. Okay, so since the pandemic, there's been a push, in my opinion, to make mental health more accessible. Well, it's not my opinion. There has been a push to make mental health more accessible and less stigmatizing so that more people are getting help, which I think is good. But I think that some people are good at hiding their grief, and the average person has no idea what signs to look for. So we really have to let ourselves off the hook. It's like the man wanted to go, and maybe the person could have been saved, but sometimes people just don't want to be saved. And I know that's controversial to say, but I don't know. By the way, I thought it was interesting that the article focused on underserved communities. Stephen Boss had resources, I don't, why is being Black or being a person of color somehow equated with being underserved? How did they make that stretch? I mean, there are tons of people that are, in need of mental health. So I don't know.
But do you think they're saying that there's more of a stigma in reaching out for help, or they just use it as like a jumping off point for being like, oh, and by the way, people of color are underserved? Is that what?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. I don't know how Stephen Twitch Boss became the patron saint of underserved.
Yeah, I think it was a generality. I think it was a generality that, if we poke a stick into it, that generality goes poof. However, I do firmly believe that underserved
young men, the Power Rangers who used to be on the power, they committed suicide. No one's creating, outreach for their communities. No one's saying, well, these guys died and we've got to reach Appalachia. I mean,
to me, underserved equals people that are economically underserved, regardless of color or anything.
Thoughts, Jackie?
I vaguely remember an article not too long ago, but I might be wrong, that something along the lines of the people of color, the population of suicide is proportionally higher, like it's moved up while overall rates have stabilized. Does that ring a bell to anybody? I vaguely remember that.
Well, I think we're a small population to begin with. So anytime you have a move,
I think there was a change in the percentage, like those rates have gone up percentage wise in comparison to other groups. I vaguely remember that.
There's been the awareness of this mental health. I think people of color have always been in distress. I don't know that people of color are now more in distress than previously. We've always
I don't know, but it's possible that it's not just stress related, that that there's other things going on too.
Well, so there's different things that you have to think about and you have to worry about and you have to stress about when you are a person of color. There are more things to worry about when you are a person of color that I think other races don't necessarily think about or have to think about. They have the luxury of not having to think about. Mm-hmm. So I'm just putting out there that I think there's always been these stressors and this mental health distress. So when I say stress, I mean stressors and distress. I'm just using like that whole term. I think there's always been a mental health pressure on people of color that's always kind of been there. I think it's just becoming since it's coming more into focus. I think
okay.
Also, has intensified that, more people can speak out about these things. You have more celebrities coming forward and admitting that they have, which makes more people say,
more dialogue.
And so I think the problems have always been there. I think it's just more, it's kind of like, with the police shootings. And again, this is not a knock on the people. This is just the example I'm thinking of. Black people have always been harassed and getting shot by the police. We just didn't.
So it's like the rest of us are finally going, oh my God, now there's video. Oh my God, they were right. They were, yeah.
For decades.
We're actually seeing it with our own eyes. Yeah.
Our own eyes, and that awareness. So that changes the awareness.
Yeah.
We've always had these issues, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Does that make sense now?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't think it's like, all of a sudden we just have this jump in mental health. Although I will say that I think schizophrenia and dementia and those, related diseases, I think there's definitely been a jump in that. Mm-hmm. But mental health, I think, has always been a thing. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah. So, and also suicide statistics are a little iffy because many times the families
don't report. I'm looking at this article from 2021 that's saying that there was an increase in Black youth of suicide rates proportionally, but that's 2021. So.
Yeah, they're a little wonky. On celebrities, because there's this overwhelming curiosity, and we always say like, "Oh, well, Robert."
Oh, yeah.
Himself, and,
right.
And we go through the whole thing, the whole, what happened, and yada yada yada. But if you're John Doe, regardless of race, and you do that. A lot of times your family out of, and people out of respect just say undetermined causes or whatever. And
right, because it's just so shameful to admit you don't want them to be remembered that way.
Yeah. It's a stigma. But, it's like, this person that was part of my group, decided to off themselves rather than live.
Also, do you remember that movie with Robin Williams? It was The Greatest Dad or something like that. It was this movie. It was one of his last movies where he was his father and his son was a raging a-hole. Mm-hmm. And he accidentally killed himself doing autoerotic asphyxia. Mm. And so he was so embarrassed that he found him that way, that what he did was he put his clothes back on him, put the lotion away and all of that. And
that is a really awful story.
Yeah. It was a dark comedy. Mm-hmm. All right. So speaking of death doulas share what drives them to help families navigate from the paperwork to the grief. As the more familiar birth doulas nurture families at the start of life, death doulas nurture at the end. Sorry, I just stuck a piece of chocolate in my mouth. They bring information, support, and peace to the dying. The role isn't new. Being a death doula has gone on since the beginning of time, National End-of-Life Doula Alliance President Ashley Johnson said. But as a profession, it's emerged in the last 5 years, surging especially with the pandemic. Oh, yes, that was the other point that I was going to make with the pandemic, because you said 2021, Jackie.
Yes.
People face mortality, Johnson said. In 2019, the Alliance had about 350 members. Now it has over 1,300, with 30 to 40 membership inquiries per month. Death doulas provide a range of services. They may sit bedside vigil with a dying person the same way birth doulas help at delivery. They help people plan for their own deaths, both legal elements like choosing healthcare proxies and emotional elements like writing letters to those left behind or listing the people they don't want at the funeral. Death doulas navigate hospice, burial, organ donation, funerals, that entire world of complicated and often expensive services. Afterwards, doulas support the grief that friends may feel too awkward to address. I was going to get into the pay and certification, but just the fact that the profession exists is fascinating enough, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's such an important role. My God,
But
just all the work involved.
The thing is, do you feel like it would be hard by the dying person, or do you feel like this would be hard by the family of the dying person? Because
hired by the family, you would think.
I think the family would. People don't want to see their loved ones die. It's the person who's suffering who wants to end it. It's not the people who. It's always the family who wants to save you.
My experience.
Would you have a death doula for your family, member?
I'm thinking of my uncle that recently had someone pass, and he hired a person. He
hired a death doula.
It's not a death doula, but he basically.
It's essentially like a hospice worker, right? Who specializes.
This worker, and he paid them extra to come in towards the end and do a lot of these things.
I think that's wonderful,
including post-death, return the medical equipment, get rid of stuff, things of that, because they couldn't bear to do it. I mean, I was doing a lot of the stuff for him.
Also, it's so much, right? It's much more stuff than you can possibly imagine, right?
It's a lot.
It was helping him go through this was 6 months almost of my life.
Oh my gosh.
His partner's apartment, I would have to clear the stuff out. He wasn't even dead.
I remember that you had to sell the apartment.
Yeah, some of it I had to sell, some of it I had to ship. Then there were dueling relatives claiming they wanted the couch. Who's going to pick up the couch?
I went with you a couple of times to help pack up all those cute little tchotchkes.
There's packing up tchotchkes, then there's alleged tchotchkes that you can't find, or
that's not even the stuff that like you have to get legal documentation for each and every time. Like so that's all just that stuff, which is so overwhelming already.
Yeah, checking accounts are easy. I mean, you have 2 4 of them, and they're there, or they pop up, and there's a lot of stuff.
2, 3, or 4 of them. That's rich people stuff.
Of course,
Or people who are just disorganized and don't know they have 5 cents in that account.
Yeah, I mean, I got my burner account, I got my real
for our triple lives.
So I do have 3 of them. So I'm not saying I'm rich, but it's just.
Aren't you though?
I don't know. Please, what? I'm still negotiating.
She's always sticking it.
I know.
But seriously,
because I'm jealous.
Like there could be a whole industry here.
Well, it could be. It is a whole industry.
But I mean, in terms of
service, I could see how like not being certified or they're not being, I could see how that might be a little problematic. You would like some kind of, organization sort of vetting people.
Right. And it was, it goes to like go through this person's clothes, see what can be donated, see what needs to be trashed, or all those things are time consuming. Yeah. And if it's somebody that's very really dear to you, it's emotionally wrecking. It's bad enough the person.
Oh, yeah.
You want to be able to spend your last moments with them, not going through their suits and deciding which one can go to Goodwill and which one needs to go.
Yeah.
the bag.
When my mom was dying, I had to do all of it myself. I had to take care of her, and I had to get all of her medical stuff taken care of. I had the what is it called? Is it the not the health? Is it called the health? Not the health.
Power of attorney.
Power of attorney, durable power of attorney. So, and we had to do it quickly because she started losing, her ability to do everything. And yeah, and I was like her shield between like this barrage of doctors wanting to just like poke her to death. And then she died. Then I had to take care of it all myself. It was really,
that's a mountain.
A mountain and a half. It was really gut-wrenching. I had to go through all of her things. I had to get in touch with Social Security. I had to go to the office. They were so kind to me. They let me keep her last month because it had just hit, and I was like, look, she died, I'm here to give back the money. And they're like, look, it's hers, we paid it, just keep it. And so I had to get the death certificate. I had to go through all her things because an entire apartment full of things. And what was one of the sad things? She had so much stuff that she just never wore because she was always as soon as I get my hair done, I'll wear this. As soon as I get my face done, I'll wear this. And so she had all of this brand new makeup and brand new clothes that she never wear. That just broke my heart that she just spent this life of waiting and then she just died. So a death doula would have probably been helpful for me, but people go through it all the time. I survived it. But I wish I knew something like it would have been nice to have somebody help me through it at the time because it really gutted me. So
and it does really have to be somebody on the premises with you because it's an extra set of hands, right?
Yes. I could have used an extra set of hands, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would hire one for me. I don't know. That's would you hire one for you, Jackie?
I think well, I got a bunch of siblings. I think I would hire one, especially one that specializes, because sometimes when there's a lot of people, one person is on point, and you can defer to them if they have experience with this, that I would, if I don't know what that costs.
Yeah, I would like to hire one, but I would not want one hired on my behalf where somebody else instructions, because then it would be like a little creepy, like, hey, where's my shit, leave it alone.
Oh, you would feel like the person's putting you in the ground.
It's like, hey, that's my book, can you wait until I'm dead, please? That's how
men so defiant when it comes to death.
Now you doomed the franchise for a decade because you moved it.
Well, if I'm frail, maybe I would hire somebody. Like if I'm frail and I just can't, like mentally I know what to do, but if I'm too frail to do all the running around myself, maybe I'd hire a death doula. It depends on what condition I'm in. All right, let's continue with our death theme after we take a short break. And we're back. And so we're continuing our death theme for today. How unfortunate. Popular dietary supplement causes cancer risk and brain metastasis. New research from the University of Missouri has found NR could actually increase the risk of serious diseases, including developing cancer. NR is nicotinamide riboside, which is a form of vitamin B3. And it's used a lot in the wellness community for cardiovascular and neurological health and metabolism and such. The international team of researchers at MU discovered that high levels of NR could not only increase someone's risk of developing triple negative breast cancer, but could also cause the cancer to metastasize or spread to the brain. Once the cancer reaches the brain, the results are deadly because no viable treatment options exist. Since NR is a known supplement for helping increase levels of cellular energy, and cancer cells feed off of that energy with their increased metabolism, Elena Goon, associate professor of chemistry at MU and study lead, wanted to investigate NR's role in the development and spread of cancer. Our work is especially important given the wide commercial availability and a large number of ongoing human clinical trials where NR is used to mitigate the side effects of cancer therapy in patients.
Oh.
No, is NR-B3 or?
It's B3, yeah. It's a form of B3. So it's not like B3, it's like maybe B.
So if you're taking like those B complexes, are you getting NR in there?
NR is completely, I wouldn't say completely different. It's like a stripped down, you know how like you can eat strawberries or you can take what's the stuff that are in the berries that the phytochemicals. It's like
phytonutrients.
Yes, the phytonutrients. Thank you.
Okay.
So like it's kind of the same thing. Like you can take a B complex or a B3, or you can get right to the nitty gritty and take nicotinamide riboside.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like kind of like jacked up B3. I would just stick to like a B complex, but that's just me. A person taking supplements regularly is always going to assume that their cancer risk is low and probably not get screened as much. Or if they don't have a genetic predisposition or known family history, they're still in the dark. So like, what do? You know, I don't think it's enough to say don't take NR, right? I say take a B complex because B3 it's good for you, but maybe not take this particular supplement alone. But also more women should just get genetic testing for breast cancer. You know, just get the testing. I don't understand why insurance doesn't just pay for genetic.
I was going to ask you, does insurance cover genetic testing for breast cancer?
You have a family history.
Aha. I think we've touched this topic before and it bears repeating.
Yeah.
If you have a family history, it needs to be covered.
They'll only cover it if you have a family history or if you have breast cancer.
Okay.
So you either need to have had breast cancer in your family, or you have to have breast cancer. That's the only way they'll pay for genetic testing.
Okay.
Find out and plan and prevent in advance? No, not without a family history. I mean, the only reason mine was covered is because my mother died of metastatic breast cancer and my grandfather died of prostate cancer. So it's like ding, 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 you know.
Okay.
But that said, I think insurance should off the bat pay for it because they would save so much more money if they
in the long run
and then did the prevention than actually paying for the cure, which is way more expensive. And after 5 years, the person may or may not live. Like it's just smarter sense, you know. And I think Congress should regulate the cost of genetic counseling and just make it open to everybody. Thoughts?
I agree. You know, I'm a believer in that.
I mean, that's
Lou?
You know, to me,
way to punt that over to Lou, by the way, guys.
I threw that grenade over there.
No, it's not that. It's just that I am so big on genetic testing that to me is like I've always been big on that.
You're so big on genetic testing that you asked your uncle about his genetic test instead of getting a genetic test.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, everybody. Since today's theme is death, the thing that gets to me is there's a saying: everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Right.
And that's me. That's me in a nutshell. I think everybody around me should get genetic testing just so I know what I'm carrying.
That's a really piss poor way of managing your health.
But are you coming from the perspective you'd rather not know?
I'm coming from the perspective of being a total idiot. I'm being a total. There's really no excuse. It's a lot of things. It's like not wanting to go to the dentist.
At least he owns it.
Yeah, not wanting to go to the dentist.
That's true. He does own it.
Yeah, I don't want to go to the doctor because they may tell me something's wrong. I mean, it's just idiotic, the thought process. Yeah, it really is.
We're not pretending that it's logical.
Yeah, if I don't look, it won't happen. You know, if I don't open up that mail, this is really important.
Water bill doesn't apply to me. It's fine.
Yeah, water bill. I haven't opened it yet. There is no water bill. You know. But seriously, genetic testing is very important. my reservations are not on the information given by the test. My reservations are that if you don't do it in a proper mode, that information then gets sold, it gets given out, handed out, and used.
You want that information to be private and protected.
Yes, for the most part, or you want to have some control as to how that information can be used.
Are you worried about it from a life insurance perspective? Like you don't, because
more like a health insurance. I think okay. Health insurance is the first one. Mm-hmm. And if you show a preponderance or predisposition to some sort of thing,
it's not see, this is the thing. It's not a pre-existing condition. They can't not pay for something because you have a genetic predisposition. That's not a disease.
Well, no, it's not that they don't pay. It's the premiums. And I'm going to talk a little bit from experience. I'm not going to name the names of the companies, mm-hmm. but I worked for a while for a big data firm that supplied insurance companies with all sorts of stuff. Mm-hmm. And, they supply the insurance companies with those red light tickets that you're paying that are not really tickets, and all sorts of nonsense. Believe it or not, your credit report gets given to, and your late payments and all that, and all sorts of things. What you're buying, all that data,
all that metadata. That's terrible.
It's they look at how much liquor you're buying. What you're picking up at the pharmacy.
Oh my gosh.
All those things, all those loyalty programs and all that, they're recording who you are, and then they turn around and they sell that data to big insurance. They don't sell it to big insurance directly. They sell it to companies that take that data and aggregate that data. And then that aggregated data is sold to the insurance company that's then doled out by zip code or doled out by individuals.
Wow. So that's what data mining is?
Yeah, in a sense. It's a lot more. It's like I'm going gold mining, not just looking for one piece.
Wow.
But when you do data mining, absolutely.
But are they doing this on an individual? Because you said zip code. So won't there be some skew? Like, I don't think people in my zip code, for example, are necessarily buying the kinds of things that I'm buying.
Well,
and I don't drink.
You've upset the data in your zip code.
I'll tell you where data gets, and we all know this, car theft.
Okay.
If your zip code data has more car theft than another zip code data,
your insurance.
Oh yes, that's right.
It doesn't. The fact that you're sitting out there with a gun in a spotlight all night,
doesn't change the fact
that you're going to pay more. And that's just one small sliver of how they come up with those rates.
Oh, wow.
So it's, where you live. It has
do you have a garage? Do you not have a garage? Those things.
But it's not individual data. It's data by the area.
It's data by the area. Then they take the individual data and they come up with a specific profile just for you. Your credit report, all sorts of things. So
then they are taking personal information.
They do. They take that personal information and they use it. And what they do is they go to these companies. So a pharmacy, and I'm not going to name pharmacies because some do, some don't. A pharmacy may sell their metadata to call it a data crunching center. Mm-hmm. That data crunching center is then hired by the insurance company to give them as much data as they can on individuals, on zip codes, on populations. Then they have all that data. Then that's used in a backwards retrograde to create your rate.
Oh, wow.
So if I did one of those tests and let's say, look, the two big ones, I'll name them. Google is 24. One is I think owned by AARP or whatever. Mm-hmm. Where Ancestry.com.
Okay, Ancestry. There's 23andMe.
Yeah, there's 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Mm-hmm. Not only do you pay them, but they sell that data.
Right. Ooh. Which is why I don't do that stuff, because I don't want them taking my information.
That data is sold. Now that data works its way around, and if your health insurance company picks up on that data and they see you have certain genetic traits, remember you're giving them all your data. They're only giving you back 24 things, but they've got 700.
They run the whole thing that you could pay more for, but
exactly. They've got your entire genome. So once they have that, they can take that genome, and they're not really selling.
There is a company though that doesn't sell your data. I forgot the name of it, but
there is one, and that's a selling point. But how much do you trust them? But they're not selling data that my mommy was from Romania or some crazy thing like that that you want. Yeah. They're selling all sorts of other stuff that's underlying data about you. Right. And then they also give population data and things of that nature, because population data is just as important or more important to the insurance company than just individual data. So they could say that, African Americans that are plus 20 pounds overweight and have this certain genome type are 3 times more disposed to cancer. And all of a sudden, those people's rates go up. And, is it fair, or is it not? Is it okay, or is it not okay? That's a whole other discussion. Is it a moral thing or not a moral thing?
So if your relatives, you didn't do like the genetic testing, the DNA thing, but all your relatives did, well, you kind of gave them all your information. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. That's how they caught some criminals.
Yes, that's right. That's how they got the Golden State Killer.
Yeah, the Idaho guy or whatever. Yeah, I think that's.
Oh yeah, that guy too. Yeah.
Yeah, the Idaho guy that killed the four students. Through some DNA test that his father did or something like that. So, they more and more they're using that data to catch, go into cold cases and stuff like that, and see what that data really is.
All right. Moving on, better options for assessing and reducing breast cancer risk. Authors of a literature review on obesity and breast cancer, speaking of breast cancer risk, published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, expressed support. Authors of a literature review on obesity and breast cancer risk published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism expressed support for shifting how breast cancer risk is assessed and managed, from weight-based strategies to a wider focus on body composition. They should also include genetic testing, but that's another matter. In particular, the paper recommends that clinicians incorporate markers of metabolic health and body composition measures for a more comprehensive window into individual risk levels. While obesity and weight gain are associated with an increased risk of postmenopausal breast cancer, tools like body mass index do not fully capture breast cancer risk. Review co-author Neil Iyengar, MD, is an associate attending physician and researcher with the Evelyn H. Lauder Breast Center at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. He recently discussed the review and its recommendations with the reading room. According to Iyengar, the most striking conclusion is that there are folks with metabolic dysregulation who may have a higher cancer risk, but who may not be recognized by current clinical guidelines. We've identified some tools to help assess whether folks are at risk of not only just obesity-related cancers, but metabolic-related cancers that may occur in people who are not obese, but who still have some degree of metabolic dysregulation. Well, according to Johns Hopkins Medicine, metabolic dysregulation signs include having at least 3 of these signs. Too much fat at the waistline, meaning over 40 inches for men or over 35 inches for women. High blood pressure, meaning a reading of 130/85 millimeters per Hg, mercury or higher, or being on medication to treat high blood pressure. High triglyceride levels, which means a reading of 150 milligrams per deciliter or higher. Low HDL cholesterol or good cholesterol, defined as a reading of less than 40 milligrams per deciliter for men or less than 50 milligrams per deciliter for women. And high fasting glucose or blood sugar, which is a reading of 100 milligrams per deciliter or higher, or being on medication to treat high blood sugar. Now, I know that I've talked about this before, and I'm going to go back to it again. We have to stop with this idea that it's okay to be overweight or obese. No one should be ashamed or, be made to feel ashamed of being a big person. But let's stop kidding ourselves. It's not healthy, period. The science points directly to the risk factors involved with carrying extra belly weight. This is not the same, obviously, for pear-shaped people where your weight is distributed on your hips and you have, the whole waist to hip ratio where naturally small waist and a naturally bigger hips and thighs. When the fat distribution is that way, that's actually more healthy than the apple shape where you have a big middle and the smaller, hips and thighs. Okay. But, people should really, apple-shaped people in particular, really need to consider a lifestyle change and stop being stubborn and defiant about this, because these are serious consequences. And there's no surgery, there's no Brazilian butt lift, there's no.
I was going to say, we know that the Brazilian butt lift is just, that's not going to make you healthier.
Yeah, you can move it from one place to the other. It doesn't change your disposition. You still are high risk, okay? Because that's not naturally how you are. In any event, this is encouraging, and I hope, it makes its way to the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force so they can make real changes and actually prevent more cancers, actually prevent, not just talk about preventing cancer, really prevent. And I think there should also be some genetic counseling, but again, we'll see what happens with that. Thoughts, people?
I'm just trying to figure out.
I'm a fan.
Okay, Jackie, you have to say more than you're a fan.
Listen, I'm a fan about genetic counseling. That would be great if they included all that. And
what about the metabolic dysregulation?
Listen, we're not here to shame people for their body weight, which is something you were saying. Right. It's not about cosmetic. It's about,
the real risk involved.
Yeah, the real stuff that even if you can lose 10 pounds, if you can make some dietary changes that reduce 10 pounds or 5 pounds, you're better off. You really head off a lot of diseases. You really take the edge off.
I'm still trying to figure out if I'm pear-shaped or apple-shaped. But yeah, how big of a waist? Now I'm worried about my waist.
Dude,
it said 35 inches, right?
35 inches for women, 40 inches for men.
Well, I'm 38 or 39. I mean, what does that do for me? I mean,
it's
well, if you pinch an inch, can you remember they used to say pinch an inch, where you reached over to your how much belly fat can you grab?
How many inches did you pinch?
Hardly any.
Okay.
That's what happens when you're in the studio.
I'm pinching a few.
Everybody can pinch a few. You have to be really, really, really super skinny and maybe a bodybuilder to not pinch inches, because having a body fat is not a bad thing. It's good for your hormones. It's good for you. Look, a lot of these weightlifter women, they don't have periods and stuff because they don't have enough body fat.
Right. And you do need certain body fat to coat your organs. I mean, you need a certain amount. Right.
Exactly. So having body fat, so everyone should be able to pinch some inches, but pinching, I don't know if pinching in inches is enough. I remember that whole pinching inches thing. But the point is
it's very 80s and 90s of last century.
What was that? Special K? That Special K commercial.
Special K commercial. That's what it was.
I know, we're dating ourselves. But any event, that's okay. Yeah. So that's kind of where I stand on it. That's great, and there needs to be more if we're really serious about preventing cancer. I mean, if we want to take it really further, then we should really start dipping into our food supply and how our food is manufactured. But that's just such a long slog and a long fight. Really, at the end of the day, it's up to the medical community to really open up the channels so that more people can be aware. All right, so on to this week's topic: time toxicity of medical care. First of all, have you ever heard that term before?
No, what is that?
So you've heard of financial toxicity, right? Where the medical care just costs so much money you go broke. I remember as I was at
Oh,
a fellowship years ago, and this woman was talking about how her husband had cancer, and they caught
oh,
it in time. And yeah, I know, amazing, right? And she's like, we're completely broke, we're completely penniless, but he's alive, and it was totally worth it. And I was just like, wow, that's kind of mind blowing. So you understand the concept of financial toxicity, where you
yes.
just go broke from medical care, which that's not a good thing, obviously. Time toxicity is, well, it was what I described to you. When I heard the term, it just clicked for me. I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. It's time tox. It's all the appointments. It's all the labs. It's you got to see this.
Oh,
You got to follow up
as
with
if you don't have other things to do, as if going to the doctor is
right.
your
It
full-time job.
It exactly, it becomes a whole other job that people just don't have the time or the luxury to do. I mean, some people do, and they can do it, and God bless them. But most people, if you're working a regular 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 10 to
Or
6,
they have family to take care of. I
right,
mean, they
and you've
have
got kids
lives.
to pick up
Yeah,
by 3 o'clock, and you've got to drop them off in the morning. People
right.
generally don't have this kind of time. But this is what goes into, this is what's baked into the cake of for example, cancer care. If you have any disease that there's no short way of doing this. It's to the point now that I refuse to go into a medical office because I've got to get there. I've got to find parking, and parking in New York is not easy because they're so anti-car.
And it's not cheap.
And it's not cheap, exactly. And you better hope you're out of there before you better hope if you don't find a parking garage that's gouging you for the time you're there, you get street parking, you better hope it's at least 2 hours, and you better hope you get out of your appointment within that 2 hour window, otherwise you're going to get a ticket. So and then you get to the appointment, then you've got to fill out the papers, and then you've got to wait because, hey, the doctor's on their job already, and their shift begins at this time and ends at that time. But if somebody's schedule gets off and the whole day I literally had to leave an appointment one time because they just took so long. I was like, look, I have to leave. My appointment was at 1. It's 1:30. I'm not going to sit here because they're like, oh, it's going to be a little bit longer. No, that's not acceptable. I said, I'm going to need my copay back, and we're going to have to do this some other time. And they were like, oh, we'll try to get you right in. I said, no, I need to leave right now. My appointment was at 1. I've been here since 12:40 or 12:35 or something like. I was there early. My appointment was at 1. And they still hadn't seen me at 1:30. I was not going to give another hour to that. So I was like, I'm going to need you guys to do something about my copay, and I'm going to leave, and you guys can call me later and reschedule. But and this is what happens to a lot of people. You sit there.
Oh, yeah. I've certainly spent a lot of time waiting for appointments where it's an additional 2 hours. Yeah.
Between the commute and the wait to see the provider.
Yeah.
And
It's the whole day.
It's your whole day or your whole afternoon. Exactly. And that's, in essence, that's time toxicity of medical care.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And it came up a couple of weeks ago when I was having lunch with someone who was pitching me a potential guest. And then she talked about the concept, and it's not as destructive long-term as financial toxicity, but it's a major deterrent to health equality. And it does have financial repercussions, of which some I just described, like the parking and all that.
Sure. Or you had to take off work, and how many days you have, personal days, you don't.
Exactly. Exactly.
If you're getting radiation for breast or many types of cancer, you're going to have 10 to 20 visits.
Right.
And these visits,
that's right,
5 days apart. And it's not like you have to go to a certain center, et cetera, to get this done. It's not a quick process. And if there's any glitch in the scheduling, if you start getting, and toxicity also means that, after 5 of them, do you start losing your will to follow up? Do you start thinking like,
oh, wow.
What's going to happen? And then you start going off schedule, and then
or your boss says, look, you've been taking too much time off, and if you are out again, or if you're late again, I'm going to fire you.
Or there's a big
and you have to make that.
Or you can't afford the sitter and you had to cancel, et cetera, et cetera. Yes.
Like I was talking with the breast surgeon because I tell you I decided to do the prophylactic the mammogram because it's just the whole that whole all of 2022, where I went through that entire thing, just really just took so much out of me. I'm just like, you know what? I want off this train. I am just going to do the mammogram. I'm sorry, mammogram, never. I'm going to do the prophylactic mastectomy and just keep it moving. And I was talking to her because and don't forget, if you have a biopsy, there's downtime for that too, because you've got to recover from that. You can't bounce back into your schedule depending on how intense the biopsy. And the last biopsy I had was pretty intense. You know, and so we were talking about when I should do the procedure. And I was stressing a little because I'm like, God, you know, I know when my schedule is going to free up a little, when I'm going to have time to be able to take off to do all of this. Well, excuse me. And the time she wanted me to do it, it just was not convenient to my schedule. And so we had to have that talk. I was like, look, realistically, I can't do this until X time. It's just not going to happen. And she was cool about it. She understood that, you know, I had time constraints and stuff like that. Like I just can't be down. Because, you know, when you're self-employed, you know, there is no, oh, I'm going to take some time off from work and I'm going to use my, I forgot what that kind of time, you know, that time that you use, you know, sick time.
Personal time or sick time.
Not personal time. It's another term. Disability. Oh, I'm just going to take some disability and take some time off and I'll be paid, you know, while I'm. No, you don't have that when you're self-employed. If you don't work, you don't make money, and clients are relying on you, and the whole machine still, especially when you're a small enterprise, you know, the whole machine rests on you. And if you can't work, your enterprise stumbles, and you know, you can't stay competitive. It's just a whole thing. So this whole idea of financial toxicity is something that I really want people to think about. What do you think, Jackie?
Well, I was thinking about all the times when it's been like, oh, we're just going to have to reschedule. And here you are in the middle of, you know, waiting for your appointment and things happen. And now I got to pay a sitter.
You showed up and they rescheduled.
That's happened before. It happened one time. It happened with the doctor who was extremely reliable, but it turns out there was an emergency at the hospital. It was probably a birth. So that, in all the years, that only happened once at that office. But plenty of other times I've been at appointments where there's a delay, and sometimes we wait around for an hour or two extra. That happens, you know, especially for specialists. And you're not going to get another appointment with them for a very long time. I mean, and here you are, you've taken your time out of the day. It cost you money. Maybe you had to pay a sitter, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have the same concept of time as you do.
Right, because they're on their clock.
Right.
And they're not thinking about, so this is a problem. So I'm going to be talking to this doctor. Her name is Dr. Sony. And she's going to be talking about that concept. And I'm curious, you know, what
it would be really helpful if it came from like the medical people, because you feel like sometimes they've never thought about that. Like they have no idea. Sometimes you feel that way with doctors' offices. Like they just think that you have nothing else to do, that you have no other life than just coming to their appointment.
Yeah, because I think what they think, especially in the cancer circles, I'm sorry, I just popped another piece of chocolate in my mouth. I know this is so rude. I'm sorry. I think what they think is, well, this is important.
This is your number one priority. This is the most important thing.
Right. And you have to make this a priority. And it's like, okay, it is important to me, but guess what? I also have to pay my rent. I also have to pick up my kid from school. I also have to make sure my car doesn't get towed. You know, like there's a ton of things that
there's a ton of other things that don't think this is your, you know, your priority.
Right. And they just don't get it. And I just wonder, how can they start getting it? A lot of this too, I think, is overscheduling, where they make an appointment for you for 1 o'clock, but they're worried that you may not show up. So they book a person at 1:15 just in case. And then you both show up. And so now what? Your 12:45 came, your 1 o'clock came, your 1:15 came. instead of staggering them out and making sure that everyone shows up. And that's
I'd be really curious to know what the doctor says about that, because I'm sure
I don't think the doctor has any control of that. I think that's
not coming from the insurance company or the office manager.
No, I think that's completely the office manager. And then the doctor looks at their schedule and they're like, oh my God, this doesn't look, but what can they do? They're not the scheduler. If you're in a private practice, it's a little different. You can be like, no, you've got to unload this.
Well, who's in a private practice anymore?
Well, that's the thing. When you're getting care for cancer, a lot of the times it's the hospitals, and the hospitals make the schedules, and the doctor is just an employee just trying to do the best they can. However, and that said, there needs to be something done about the fact that this just takes a ridiculous amount of time and excludes a lot of people because of the fact that it takes so much time. Because people are, for some people, getting sick is an abstract concept, because it's like, I don't feel pain, I feel fine, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you may have cancer, but you may not be in pain cancer. You may just have the cancer, and you put it off because it's like, well, I don't have time to do this. I've got to work. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to be late for picking up my kids, or this is my weekend for my kids. I don't want my crazy ex to give me a hard time because I can't make it because I've got a doctor's appointment. There's just so many factors that they just don't. Do you think that maybe these medical centers would benefit from like time sensitivity training or something?
I would think so. I thought that was a certain aspect. Isn't that part of the aspect of aren't there social workers where they sometimes bring that in? A hospital social worker that specializes that.
No, I don't think so. I think it's really more for the emotional aspect, or maybe to help you fill out papers.
Because sometimes they'll say something like, "Oh, maybe you." Because imagine all the people who take the bus.
Yeah, right. Right. So if you have those kinds of like tangible needs, they'll help you with that.
I think it also matters. Like, let's say you have cancer. I think it matters what kind of cancer you have too, because I think there's money behind. Like, I think if you have certain types of breast cancer, there's more money behind, let's say, breast cancer. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Than say like,
but there's a lot more drugs available.
Yeah. But I think there's also more infrastructure of like
care
people who thought about that. Yeah, care in general.
Yes, that's true. I think that that hospitals and medical centers could benefit from some sort of time sensitivity training. Otherwise, people are just going to continue to be.
They have no idea, right? They'll be ignorant about it.
Well, they'll continue to lose people to cancer. There are people who are not going to be able to comply. And it's not because they don't want to comply. It's they simply can't comply. It just doesn't work with their life. And that's not to say that treatment is not a priority to them. They want to live just as much as the person who works from home and has the time and the resources to do all of this. It's just that their life just is not designed that way. So I think that's something that medical providers and the people that make the appointments, all these people, the centers themselves really need to take into consideration if they're going to address the disparity involved in care for, diseases like cancer, for example, since we're sticking with the cancer. It's if you really think about it, that's the great divider. I mean, there's the financial aspect of it, and that's toxic in itself. But then you have this other toxicity. You have to have time and you have to have money. And both of those things, if you have neither of them, you're as good as dead. I mean, just think about that. Let that
marriage. That's awful. Yes, that's so true. Yeah. I'm really curious to know what your interview is going to provide. I'm really curious to know what she has to say, your expert.
Anyway, go to urbanhealthweekly.com for links to these articles. And remember, you only have one life and one body. So you've got to do your best to make it count so your years are full of life and full of health. Information equals transformation. So small steps each day and you'll see a difference. I'm sure of it. All right, that's all the time we have. Lou had to bow out early because he had some. And, I will see you next week, my darling.
All right, sounds good.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.